Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for part 2 of Borderlands Theater's tribute to the Tucsonan playwright Silviana Wood. My name is Veronica Conran, and I am the digital content producer at Borderlands Theater, and I'll be your host for tonight's very special event. I was born and raised in Nogales, and I've lived in New Mexico, and I've been in Tucson for 15 years now. So I'm no stranger to the Borderlands, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be a part of the kind of work that this company does. It's an incredible honor to be celebrating a woman who is a staple in the script of Tucson's story and who is the voice of its people. When Mark approached me with this job, I was in a very tough, unstable place in my life, like so many people are in these times. But after a short conversation on who Silviana was and the work she had done, I was inspired and I knew there was no way I wasn't going to help tell her story. The past couple of months, I've been investigating Silviana through phone calls, emails, research, and this is not an easy task. You can't just troll this woman on Instagram and learn her life story. Getting to talk to people that know her and have worked for her for years has been an incredible journey, and Silviana has captured my heart, like I'm sure she has with so many, and she's ignited yet another fire within me as an artist, which I hope happens for all of you watching tonight as you get to know her. Tonight's show features a very special group of elders who have been part of the Chicana. Elders are so important to us, for us to learn and grow from, and we're honoring them as well as Silviana tonight. They've been part of the Chicano movimiento since the 70s, when Tucson was full of activism and exciting changes. These people are not only Silviana's comrades, they also came together as a collective with her and held space for the working class and underserved and brought them insightful theater, which was a vehicle for change. They have so much to share, and I only hope to keep in communication with them so I can continue to pick their brains, because there's so much to learn from them. Let me go ahead and introduce everybody. I'm gonna start with Lupe Castillo. Lupe is a retired history professor from Pima Community College, as well as an activist in the Chicano civil rights movement. Born and raised in Tucson, Arizona, Lupe is the founder of University of Arizona's Movimiento Estudiantil Chicano de Aztlán, which is MECHA, and she is one of the first professors to develop Chicano studies courses at Pima. In 1970, she first helped organize Tucson residents to establish the El Rio Neighborhood Center and fought to build the Joaquin Murrieta Park on Tucson's west side. Thank you so much for being here, Lupe.
Thank you.
My next up is Barclay Goldsmith. Barclay is the founder of Borderlands Theater, which started in 1986 and was a founding member of Teatro Libertad, which we're going to talk a lot about in this show, a community-based theater collective, which was active in the 70s civil rights movement. Ongoing programs that he's established include Border Playwrights Project, featuring new plays by established and emerging playwrights, and the US-Mexico Project, supporting exchanges of theater practitioners across the border. He's a well of knowledge, and we're so happy to have him tonight. Thank you, Barclay, for being here. Next, I am excited to introduce Ramona Grijalva. Ramona has played a huge role in the Tucson community over the years. She's dedicated 33 years of herself to serving Tucson Pima Public Library and has been honored by the Tucson Area Literacy Coalition for her lifelong commitment to literacy. Her passions and life have aligned with Silviana, books and writing, and her work, and I don't even need to mention who her husband is, because she's the one that's here tonight. But I'm very thrilled to have her here. Ramona, welcome.
Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you. All right, Teresa Jones is another one of the founding members of Teatro Libertad. She produced and co-hosted several Spanish language TV and radio shows, including the PBS show Reflexiones, in which Silviana appeared as the character Doña Chona. She now has over 40 years of experience working in television and is currently the multimedia market consultant at Univision Seattle. Welcome, Teresa. Happy to have you.
Muchas gracias. It's an honor to be here tonight. Muchas gracias.
All right. Arturo Martinez was also part of the founding group of Teatro Libertad. He later moved on to do work with Teatro Chicano, Teatro El Sol, and Borderlands Theater. He was in the thick of the movement with Silviana and has some incredible stories to share with us tonight. Welcome, Arturo.
Gracias.
And last, but certainly not least, Valerina Quintana is a member of Mujeres que Escriben, a Latina writers group founded in 1991 by Silviana. It supports and encourages mujeres to develop as writers. She's a former student of Silviana's, and she is also a dear friend of hers. Welcome, Valerina. So happy to have you.
Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you. Okay, so now we have all our panelists here. I'm really excited to get started with the show. So moving forward, I think we're gonna go ahead and show our first clip just to get started with, and then I'm gonna go ahead and talk to you guys about what the show is going to include.
¿Qué onda, raza? This is Tucson Mayor Regina Romero. Over the course of her enduring career, Silviana Wood has worked diligently and consistently with her community to produce insightful, relevant theater. A Tucsonense raised in Barrio Anita, she earned her Master of Fine Arts in Playwriting from the University of Arizona. Activist, single mom, social worker, college instructor, performer, director, playwright, and all-around chingona, Silviana Wood gave voice to the experience of Mexican-American women from the borderlands. Her life is a testimony of the Chicana experience seeped in art and politics of el movimiento Chicano. Silviana Wood is our very own Chicana chingona, enduring the test of time, challenging cultural and gender stereotypes, and always in your face, but with a smile. Silviana, you belong to Tucson, and we recognize you. Somos uno, Tucson. Que siga la lucha.
Que siga la lucha. Thank you, Regina. That was such a beautiful statement. And yes, there's so much that Silviana has done, and I'm ready to go ahead and start talking about it. This show is going to include us showing clips of Silviana through an interview that Borderlands did with her. And then we're going to open up the discussion to all our panelists that are here tonight, our elders. And we also have a special appearance by Doña Chona herself, which is really exciting. I'm sure some people haven't seen this in a very long time and will be excited to see that. And also a special appearance by County Supervisor Betty Villegas. She'll be presenting Silviana with a proclamation at the end of this. Okay, I hope you guys enjoy tuning into the event, and I hope you enjoy learning about our hija de Tucson, Miss Silviana Wood. So I want to go ahead and kind of, this first segment is Silviana and getting to know who she is a little bit. She's a master storyteller and performer, and she attributes a lot of her work and her skills that she has acquired over the years to her growing up, starting there, growing up in Barrio Anita. And let's go ahead and take a look at what she has to say about that in the video.
I was born and raised in Barrio Anita. I don't know, I would say it was poor, but then the memories are so pleasant. I don't have bad memories. I think that we were very safe in the sharing. I think that, I don't know if that still exists. If somebody made tamales, you knew that if they were going to be spread all over. We used to meet for games and for stories, songs. So we had to meet at somebody's yard in the back, and there would be a fire, watermelon, and then there was always a storyteller from somewhere that would show up and start telling us the stories. My storytellers that I knew, I just remember vaguely because they would do their work and leave. And then, because they always had another town.
Yeah.
So I think we inherited a lot from Nogales, because they would come this way and they would get their dinner, watermelon, and we knew, we made special requests, the story this, and then the funny thing was that after the stories, you were scared to walk home by yourself, and they would leave you. And then when we got bored with the stories, we could play games. The reason I loved the games was they were pantomime, okay? A lot of pantomime, and I learned all these facial things from the games that we played. You want to hear La Luna?
Yes.
Okay, here's the baby. Ahí viene la luna comiendo la tuna, tirando la cáscara en la laguna. My grandma could speak without words. That's where I learned to make my faces. If some lovers went by in a car, she would be like this. Another one would come by and she would say, quite el vestido, lleva 3, y está en welfare.
That was beautiful. Everybody knows the caritas, right? There's 1,000 words in a single that you can make. Okay, everybody, it's time to open up the discussion. So there's so much in there that I want to talk about. Silviana starts with talking about, gathering together and the art of storytelling and what storytelling does to unite and also to teach. They're teaching your youth by doing storytelling and having them like interact and work with each other. What do you guys think about that? Anybody can jump.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
So now all the things that we used to write to put together, there was always something that had to be taught at the end. And so it made it sometimes really hard because we couldn't just go off and do silly things and entertain. We had to end up with something that was concrete, said about a situation and what we could do about it, what we hope to do about it, aspirations, plans, whatever. Anyway, we argued and argued and argued until we learned something. Then we were able to teach it to the audience. That's my
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm getting a message here. I know when we talked about the early life with Silviana, and when everybody first met her, it kind of like goes into her youth, but it kind of goes into our next section, which is like the teatro and like the 70s and when everyone was part of the movimiento. I wanted to know about just your experience with Silviana as an actress, because as you can see, she has all the faces, all the emotions just packed in there. When you first met Silviana,
Oh my gosh.
she always been this
Look
way.
at Pancho.
Like this, you know, a child in Maria Anita. What are your thoughts about that?
Just looking at all these old pictures.
Oh.
You forget what we used to look like.
Yeah.
I mean,
La muerte.
Pancho with all that hair and that big beard.
Mhm.
And I think the importance of all of the street theater at that time, as Arturo was saying, all of the presentations, but in the end, it was important. You know, there was a message, if you will. I hate to use that word, but behind all of it was something important that was out of the community, for the community, and energize also the other work that was being done to change things as they existed, and bringing all of that experience that everybody brought, every single member of the teatro. I remember in Barrio Anita, where the mask making was going on, and the building of the monsters, and then marching around, processing around the neighborhoods. But again, it wasn't just a circus thing. It had to do with what was going on in the community and for the community. And so it was very integrated, very organic, out of the barrio, in the barrio, for justice, you know. So, you know, it was very powerful.
Yeah, I think the message was like the main character really in the play, and the story was sort of built around what we're trying to convey, the message we're trying to convey, or the lesson we're trying to teach, or whatever it was, but it was generally contemporary. It was about something that was going on at that time that you hoped was important to everybody as much as it was to them.
But there was also a recognition of history when we did the Shrunken Head of Poncho Villa with the theater that predated the theater that we're talking about now. It looked back at how Poncho Villa could be used as a model for today. So there was also a looking back in El Basil de 76, which explored this train that was going through the country to honor the somewhat phony history that didn't include the Southwest in 1776. And there was a whole section of the brigade. What was it? The San Patricio Brigade, which was a brigade basically of Irish soldiers that went down to fight against the revolution and then defected. And that was a looking back in the past also. So we were not without taking into account our history. And even in that wonderful production the other night of Amor de Hija, the grandmother looks back at her life as an early girl in Veracruz. And it's again looking back more in a sense of nostalgia, because that play was written after the Reagan administration came to power and most of the theatrals had closed.
Yeah, I like that you bring up Amor de Hija, just because Silviana said in this video, you know, she talks about playing games and these nursery rhymes and all this stuff that she includes it into her writing. La Luna, the nursery rhyme that she did at the end of that video, she is part of the play that she wrote. Barclay, you had mentioned, and Lupe, you just mentioned it too, this giant dragon that was created, and and I think it ties in with the like traveling storytellers that came to Tucson from Nogales, and they're coming up, and then this dragon was created. Can you tell us what that was for, and what the purpose of that parade was, or anybody who wants to talk about that?
It was to protest the building of the Butterfield Expressway, which was going to go right through a number of barrios in South Tucson to connect with the freeway. And so there were a lot of people in town that were against the Butterfields, and so it was done at rallies to bolster those people who were protesting. The drag we did is Chinese dragon, and it seemed like at that time in history, these big street lawn dragons are really de moda all over the country. People were doing these street dragons that stretched all over the place. I don't think that was anything particular to our theater company. I think we were just trying to do something that was everyone else was doing.
Something to get people out in the streets.
And also there were mask making. And so there was, I forgot the name of that young man whose workshop it was, and that there were masks being made, but the focal point of Butterfield Express was, it was going to go right through El Tiradito. And that's what provoked a lot of energy from the barrios downtown that had already been destroyed. But what remained, especially people in El Hoyo and in the area around Carrillo, rose up in arms. And one of the leaders of that was a man who had been born and was centered in, I think, Tubac and Tucson, and who was Professor Arnulfo Trejo, who also recruited and started the training of librarians, who were going to be brought into a system that was including the writings of people writing in Spanish. I don't know if you remember him, Mona, but
oh yeah,
he was very key in.
No, he started the first program for Latino librarians ever. Now the university has had one for the last, almost 10 years, I think.
So that,
and so like people like Ramona, Bob Diaz, and Abel, and you can go on and on, Marisa Grijalva, a whole generation, Frank de la Cruz, a whole generation of librarians that brought about really important changes within the library system. And the Amanda, my sister-in-law as well, who was a librarian in South Tucson, and the first library there was in a
trailer.
In a trailer.
Oh, yes.
In a trailer.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so all of that was integrated, the theater, what was going on in the community, and it was like a very important period, almost like a renaissance of activities.
Yeah, and that's
community-based activities.
Right.
It's such a beautiful part of Tucson that I appreciate and grow to love every day, especially when I hear these stories and I find out more about all of that unity that this city has. So I want to get more into activism because that's where we're headed. That's a huge part of why we're all here. The teatro is rooted in it, and although Silviana does not consider herself an activist, her family, her life, we're all undoubtedly having activism woven into it. So I want to go ahead and show the clip, which I think is a clip that we started. We'll go ahead and show that. She's talking about her rebel rouser friends.
And I'm not going to mention my rebel rouser friends, but they're the ones that said, we're going to have a meeting, the church here and the church there, and we're going to picket this grocery store. That's how we got involved, or I and my kids. And then Barclay somewhere said we could be doing skits at these meetings. And so he started. We started with Luis Valdez's. What was it, like La Quinta Temporada, things like that. And so my brothers and I and Arnold and all of these, we gathered and we became Teatro del Pueblo. Well, then we were performing at Ori, but mostly we were performing in the streets and wherever. And it involved performing and then doing some work, leafleting or whatever. And right along there comes the struggle for El Rio. When you think about, but we're back to poverty. The kids all around these areas did not have any recreation stuff. Nothing. So everybody was saying, well, here's this beautiful green area here, the golf course. Our audiences were working class. Sometimes we got university students and as audience. And family is huge. I put my kids to be on the stage. But the time, and this is strictly from a woman's view. A lot of the men in theater and in writing and whatever, it's very easy, and I could see that in the Tenaz conferences. It was very easy for them to spend all night rehearsing and but a woman with kids, you're saying, or you get the calls, and who's going to babysit tonight? You haven't picked them up. No, we're rehearsing late. And so, and another thing in the scripting, a woman like me could have ideas, and then nah. But then if a male said it, okay, we'll do it. So that was my struggle, personal. That I'd say, hey, I just said that, and but I always felt very supported by all the members, and I think Teatro Libertad, I think we've always had very strong female roles, and I think it came from within. It wasn't me. it was Teresa wanting this, Pernella wanting this, and very strong roles. That feeling of collectiveness was very strong. And somebody would have an idea, and somebody would say, let's try this, and our characters would develop from them. And again, I thank Barclay for all of that. He's the one that taught us that. He would tell us a lot of the elements of theater. Yeah. Don't forget, we hadn't had theater. We hadn't had classes. So we learned little by little. Later, for Teatro Libertad, I was surrounded by super, super good actors who could ad-lib and throw in humor. And because, again, we're back to working class people who had lived these lives, okay? They know what it's like. They know that it's very hot outside on top of a roof, and it's something that they can relate to. So a lot of the Teatro Libertad live that same life.
Beautiful. Teresa's nodding, and I know you mentioned that you in that segment, and I want to talk about that part first because it was right at the end there talking about just being a female in the theater at the time. I think something that's incredibly admirable is being a mother and doing all those things. Ramona, you were active, with your kids, and Teresa, you were there helping create these strong roles with Silviana. Can you guys just all open up to discussing, being a female at that time and doing theater collectively, because I know it sounds like a really supportive environment that you guys had, but just talk about that a little bit.
Well, yes, I am not a mom, and that's one experience I never had. But I remember Silviana bringing in Adriana, and Adriana was our little, she did so many roles, and we had her do so many things in the teatro. But I think we all, I don't know if I was so focused on the topic of being a woman in teatro as much as just really feeling community, and we all had the same interests, and we all were, struggling and fighting for the same issues. And so, but I will say this, in terms of strong females, I think a lot of Latinas come from really strong women. My mother was definitely a chingona, and that's a long story. We're not here to talk about my mom, but and seeing Silviana and you know, all these struggles that she had to go through on top of everything else, but we all somehow made it work as a team, as a group, as a teatro, as community. And it was a great experience. Wow. It's really great to be reminiscing tonight about all this too.
When we toured, there was always in the van, there has to be room for Adriana and whatever other kids were part of the family.
Yeah.
And even if you look at, I was looking at some photographs of the teatro, and kids were included in the productions. You see a lot of the posters that have children also being a part of it. And that just speaks so much to how involved with the community the theater was.
And the kids were, as I recall from rehearsals, I was a groupie, you know, so I was around a lot, and I always remember you brought the kids with you because you know, if somebody couldn't take care of them, there they were, and so you had to you know that, and Ramona, for example, was involved in the Chicano house. And there was a group of women there with children, and they wanted to start the Chicanito school. Remember, Ramona? Maybe you can talk a little bit about that and what that was coming from. You know, it was before that, everybody assumed there was daycare or preschool, and we were trying to create that. And especially those who were women in the movimiento, because like that's what I thought about as I was watching Amor de Hija. It's like it's sort of, to me, Amor de Hija is sort of like water for chocolate, Chicano style. You know?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Something
My,
to add there?
my son Patrick Patricio was in it for a while, and sometimes he would juggle in front of the audience, you know, as they were coming into the theater. But one of the things I remember a lot was that in Los Pelados, it was a play about tirabichis, which were garbage collectors, and they were fighting to get better pay and more job security, and we were helping them get high profile in the community. But at the same time, there was Margarita. Teresa, you played Margarita.
Yes.
And there was a scene where we choreographed the physical work of the garbage workers with these large garbage cans, and at the same time, on the opposite side of the stage, Margarita cleaned house and swept the floor with the same motions as the garbage workers. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I think the feminist movement, according to my wife Raquel, was just beginning to explore how much work women do in the house that is similar to what men do, but it's not counted as labor. And that's still been discussed right to this day, that big debate. But Silviana, you were really, I think, on top of it, including that theme into the play, because you brought up the same theme again in Amor de Hija with, I don't remember the name of the women character in that Amor de Hija. It took all the work home, but she still had to take care of her mother. She had to take
Consuelo.
Yeah, Consuelo. The work was not any easier and she took it all home. And I kept thinking, I don't know, Silviana, you could react to this at the end of the talk tonight, but there was I felt so much that the couple in Amor de Hija had been married and were the same couple in Los Pelados, but just 30 years later.
Yeah.
I think we still have time. I know we touched I love it. We touched a bunch on the woman's point of view and Silviana's writing in that way. I do just want to talk a little bit about the activism that happened in this same time period. her rebel rouser friends and Barclay suggesting that the theater should be used for political purposes and for messages. And so she talked a little bit about that. She talks about the struggle for El Rio. And I really, if people who are watching don't know what that is, I do want to just bring that up if someone wants to talk about that.
Lupe, you're not gonna come in as the historian?
You can start it and I'll follow you, Mona.
Well, as Silviana said, it was basically because the kids on the west side had no place to go, no place to play. There was no green space. There were no parks. There were no community centers. There were no places for kids to go. No brothers and sisters. They have a huge Big Brothers Big Sisters program there now and have for many years. But at that time, there was nothing. And in the middle of this nothing was this humongous golf course that was covered in green space that people from all over town came to play golf at. But unless you were a caddy or you worked there, you were not allowed on that golf course. So the irony of having this huge green space in the middle of this nothing for children was kind of what prompted that, trying to get the city to build a community center and establish a park and all of that. And it came, the picketing and demonstrations came out of that. There were many arrests at the time. But it was an extension. I mean, everything that the Teatro did was like an extension of real life. I always felt. It was always contemporary and about something that was important to all of us at that time. So they just put a spotlight on it.
I mean, and for example, if we were boycotting, and we would be at Safeway boycotting the boycott, the farm worker boycott, often people spontaneously outside would start kind of not acting, but like interacting with people going in. And one time I remember Frankie Wood, Sylvia's brother, we were picketing El Grande Market here on Grande Avenue, and he kept saying they're injecting dyes in the meat, you know, and so it looks redder, but you know, and so we were interact with people, and people would be talking back and forth, but you know, so the theater was like an ongoing kind of process of boycotting, marching, everything we did kind of brought that into it. And so, it, you know, so when you saw theater, people already knew what it was. I mean, it was like happening on the street constantly.
So you had some improv sessions happening outside of the grocery stores, working on your improv skill.
We would do crazy things, like people would walk in and start buying food, and then somebody would say, oh, you shouldn't buy that food because they're selling grapes here. And then you start like acting out with that person. And so they say, oh, you mean that these are, you know, the grapes that people are fighting for? Yes. And then we would walk out and leave, like we would pretend that those people were actually shopping, and we would leave the carts behind full of food because we said, oh, I'm not buying this. And then we would start talking to people around us, don't buy food here, it's, you know, and then we would walk out. So, you know, so that was kind of happening, you know, whether it was on the boycott or it was like against the war in Vietnam, or whatever cause we were at the time, there was always that kind of interaction going on. And certainly Frankie and Sylvia, and they had a natural knack for all of that. And so they could just kind of lead us as cheerleaders.
And they always incorporated humor, which I think attracts people that might not otherwise, if they think you're like a radical or a crazy political like, people are now. But the humor just brought people in more gently, I guess.
Definitely. I want to move on to our next session with that, Ramona, because this next video of Silviana, she mentions that, and the segment is actually it's about language. It's probably my favorite part of the show. Silviana's language is the embodiment of walking between two lands, and is such an important part of creating connection to her audiences. And she's a master with words, and she's able to switch between English and Spanish effortlessly and through her texts, and that creates genuine characters, relatable characters, and also just connects people that much faster. So I want to go ahead and show the next clip of Chicana language.
Your language identifies you. It can make you strong, or it can make you weak, or it can make you afraid. And I never criticize somebody. If anything, I run and get the dictionary. I stack the dictionaries, and you have to figure out. Okay, we're next to Sonora. Our Spanish has a lot of Sonoran words. And I was listening to some that they're talking about their cell phone, and their words are coming out. Escanealo. And I'm like, oh, scan. And then the other one says, sí, está chateando. Chatting. See? Something okay, now I know teenagers. And what I try to do in my dialogue is to be really faithful to their speech patterns, to the way they speak, without any censorship. I was talking to somebody that knows all the slang, the pachuco, the calo, and all these words that I've been learning. And then when he said something, I said, "What do you mean se curó?" Because when these guys are saying curó, y que curada, y me curé, it's the word for curing, but they're also saying it was funny. My greatest thing was when I had my plays performed, if somebody went up to me and said, oh, that was my grandpa, that was my tata right there, the grumpy tata. A writer, any writer, has to love language along with people. Connect them, not separate, not nothing. And when I'm trying to remember my characters, how they spoke, how they felt, I do that. And the language that I'm saying again, I don't see this is proper Spanish, this is not proper, no. Language is communication.
So that communication that is so effortless for her. I want to just open that up. I love the seguro, está curada. And it's also if you think about the two words cure and funny, like there's a power in using comedy to heal, to cure. And so I feel like that was so much integrated into what you guys were creating with the Teatro Libertad, and I just want you guys to kind of go into the language. I know, I think it was Arturo, you were talking about how hard it was when you guys were creating, and it was like, and things had to be written down, and
well, there was several of us did not grow up in the barrio, so we didn't know the language, or the way. There was one time when I was supposed to be a cholo, and I didn't know how to walk like a cholo. So I went to Sylvia and Pancho, and how do I walk like a cholo? I said, walk like you're listening to some music, and kind of move to that music as you walk. Yeah, and that's a cholo walk. But they had the culture, they grew up in it, they had the words, and some of us didn't. Barclay didn't, I didn't, Scott didn't, but for sure And Teresa, you didn't either. I think.
No.
But it was Pancho and Sylvia were the barrio culture.
You guys would do some, I think Barclay, maybe you were talking about how things were like created when you were creating, you created your own content. Would you work it out? I mean, you were all together. You would improv, and then Silviana would take care of dialogue and get things written down and put it into like word form. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I think we would decide on an issue that we wanted to back or explore. One was the sanitation workers, the garbage workers who were going out on strike was one play. The other one was this train of famous people during the early years of the country that went across in this train in fancy costumes of George Washington, etc., and didn't really reflect where we were. So we would bring in readings and pamphlets, and we talk about the issues where we only met once or twice a month. How often was it, Arturo? Once a month? Once a week?
Sometimes we'd meet twice a week.
Okay, for a long time. And we really took this work seriously of looking at the issues. What are the issues with sanitation workers? You know, and what are the issues with this and what are the issues with that? And then I don't know how we would come up with a plot. Maybe Silviana remembers how we got on our feet after all these studies. Does anyone remember what we did? Something got us on our feet, and we would begin to improvise scenes. Or maybe Silviana, you came in with a couple scene suggestions. I don't remember what got us on our feet.
We divided up the play sometimes, because we did it all kinds of different ways. But we divide up the play, sections of the play, and we pair up and do a little improv. And then show it to the group, and the group would kind of refine or change it or whatever. And then at the end, we let Sylvia do the refining of the language.
But I remember many times Sylvia would come back to the group and say, this needs more work. I know it would take at least 3 or 4 2 or 3 hour rehearsals just to get one scene down. Mm-hmm. It wasn't done just in one night. Yeah. It was revise, go back, revise, which is, I think, what a lot of good theater companies that do this kind of collective creativity did back then. Now they call it devised work, which to me has no muscle in the term, but that's what they use now.
Oh, it's a lot of work. I want to bring Valerina in on this because I know Valerina works with Silviana even to this day in Mujeres que Escriben, and they're always working on stuff together. And I want you to just talk a little bit about your experience with her as a writer and how she's influenced you and all of that, Valerina.
Going back to what Silviana said about language and words, it's so very important because it's said when the language is gone, it's the culture is gone. And what Silviana so nimbly and artistically and skillfully captures that in whatever she writes, whether it's a poem or a play or even when she's talking. And she is so curious about everything. It's this whole thing about being bilingual, which I just remember, being told that, we didn't know Spanish well and we didn't know English well. And it's like when you are bilingual, and it doesn't matter what language is, but in our case, it's when you are bilingual, you have 2 ways of looking at the world. traits of perceiving. And I remember in workshops, we'd say, well, the word power, what does that mean? And people would say power corrupts or whatever. And I would think, well, what's power in Spanish? It's poder. What does it translate to? It translates to be able to. So, to be able to. And that really, when I have a question about some word in English, then I go back to the Spanish, and it's like it's so much richer, so it provides so much more clarity for me. And when Silviana started the Mujeres que Escriben group, that was in 1991, and she just thought there was no place for Chicana writers to get together, and so she brought 4 of us together, and she had the whole agenda written out, and we had cafecito and pan dulce, and so then we met every month, and there was a prompt, and just as in the collective in the theater, all the members we took turns leading the meeting, providing a prompt, providing some refreshment, which later just really morphed into like a 3-course meal, including dessert. And Silviana to the day says, I only come for the food, which, we've learned so much from Silviana. I at one point she said, and when we had a meeting with her, she said, I want you to look at each other. Just take a turn and look at one, take turns, look at the person next to you and say your name and say, I am a writer. Because we say, oh, maybe, I write, but she made us say, I am a writer, just as in, AA, this is my name and I am a writer. Acknowledge that. And she also said, she advised us to go into the world and use all our 5 senses, as you can see what she does. She does that. And she also said, I think everything is a play. And so when you go and you use your 5 senses, when you're curious and you listen to people and how they talk, and it's like those are characters. You're not trying to mold them into something that is your own perception of perfection. Someone once said, oh, everybody is a storyteller, but some tell better stories. And that's Silviana, the brilliant storyteller. She uses her words, and we meet once a month, and I've just learned a lot about writing, and I just really appreciate Silviana for many things.
Well, that quality that she has about being curious and exploring and always developing her characters from real people brings me to our next clip. It's Silviana, but she'll tell you how this character was created. So I'm just going to go ahead and show the clip.
Reflexiones got started at the at the PBS station. They wanted to insert something a little different. It was going to be about cultural events and whatever. And Teresa Jones was working for them, and we kind of discussed having some humor. And then I met with the directors and all of that, and that's what happened. She was a character in one of the Libertad's plays. She was the mother-in-law and very critical because the son-in-law works for the garbage collecting, and so like this and that. Doña Chona was really a creation in my brain, and part of it was my mom, and part of it was every single lady that I met in Barranita and all over, okay?
Pero los barrios, pues, como todo fue cambiando. Vinieron gentes y compraron las propiedades así por nada, y ahora son oficinas de abogados y qué sé yo. Y bueno, pues, ay, luego el Community Center, ese mentado Community Center, vino y destrozó todos los barrios aquí del Hoyo, todos de acá. Y pues ahora ahí está el centro y yo creo que nadie va porque cuesta mucho. Yo digo que cobra mucho ir ahí al Community Center. Pero siempre yo creo que en el espíritu, ¿verdad?, de la gente aquí del barrio, siempre vive aquí en nuestras memorias, digo yo, ¿verdad?
Doña Chona. I love this clip when I first saw it, and I watched it over and over, and I'm just like, how is this lady so sweet, yet, you know, she's sending this message discerningly. She's talking about gentrification in the neighborhood and sending this huge message, and also being just like cute and funny, and also that tia or your mom or that lady, she encompassed all these things. It's just so deep, and I love it, and I'm so glad that I get to see, you know, Silviana performing at that time. I saw your eyes just light up when you saw it. And I wanted to talk about Doña Chona because you were the producer of Reflexiones, which was a program on the PBS station at the time.
Right.
And so how did all of this happen? How did it?
Well, Silviana mentioned a little bit on there on her video, but yeah, I was hired in 1980 as a trainee and then moved up slowly. And as things went by, you know, we had this show, the management was committed to doing more with the Latino community. And when we started talking about bringing in like different segments, and one of the segments we ended up with is Del Pasado al Presente with Professor Armando Migueles, which was very structured, and he researched everything, and it was all about the history of Tucson. But we knew we needed something a little more lighthearted. And of course, me having been part of teatro, and I knew who Doña Chona was because she was my mom in one of the plays. And I knew that Silvia, you know, had all this artistic ability. And we decided to do La Vida de Doña Chona, and we call her La Comadre de Todos, because comadre que siempre andaba hablando, diciendo. But I wanted to share that it was just so amazing to work with her. I used to go on all the shoots because I would produce the shoots and produce where we would end up shooting. But honestly, you know, this is how easy it was. I go, okay, Chona, what do you want to talk about this time? And she would say, well, we got to talk about this. This is happening right now, da, 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 da. Whatever the topic was, we would go, okay, well, let's do it at my sister's house, for example. And we would turn the camera on and she would just perform. And it's amazing. And for people who work in television, that's not that easy to do. But Doña Chona, oh my God, Silviana was just amazing. It was so easy to work with her. And just this amazing, you know, artistic ability, storytelling ability, the passion, the ad-libbing, the improvisation, anything that we needed to talk about, she found a way to be funny. And there were a few that were pretty heavy, but somehow she found some nugget of funniness to kind of drive. I can't think of an example right now, unfortunately, because she had so many segments. We did so much. And, you know, it was truly a joy to work with her. And I got to tell you, I got to share with everyone that it was so funny because Reflexiones was the first bilingual news magazine to ever be produced in the country. So we were really proud of that. When we said bilingual, we did the show, whatever came out in English, whatever came out in Spanish, whatever was Spanglish. Y así se hizo el programa. And it just took off, especially her character. People would call into the station and say, ¿Cuándo sale Doña Chona? When is Doña Chona going to be on? And we'd be like, you mean you don't want to know when Reflexiones is on? She's on Reflexiones. No, we want to see Doña Chona. She was just so popular. And we would run into people on the streets. Oh my God, people would go crazy. It's like, that's Doña Chona. Because, you know, she was just so good and so identifiable. And yes, that outfit, she wore it forever, but that was part of the idea so that people knew, you know, that this is Doña Chona. So she used to joke with me all the time. It's like, the day's gonna come when I'm not gonna need this damn wig. I don't know if you remember that, Silviana, but I think we're there. No,
yes. Well, I think it's also important to point out that the community was very receptive, not only to Teatro Libertad, Doña Chona, because they came out of the experience of Cantinflas and Tintan.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
and so like the dress that Silviana used. Remember, Cantinflas used the same outfit in every single movie he ever did. You know, and the use of the language, all of that. There was already in the community a reception for what was called las carpas in Mexico. You know, and that kind of interconnection between the audience and the community, and I know that Silviana's one of her favorite movies was El Bolero de Raquel with Cantinflas, and so part of that tradition is there, you know, and I think that's why people all over Tucson loved Doña Chona.
Absolutely. And I do want to say, you know, because there's so much emphasis has been on how Silvia has fought so strongly to maintain, you know, this kind of speak. And we would get, you know, questions and criticism about, pero si no habla bien el español. And we're like, that's Doña Chona, you know, this is how we speak. And I think eventually people stopped calling to complain. And then we would point out, well, we have Armando Migueles and he's doing the really, you know, Spanish, okay? So, but I think people just ended up, they could relate to her and they understood her. So, no, it was such a wonderful experience to work with Silviana on that, with Doña Chona.
Yeah, she was very relatable. It didn't matter if you spoke Spanish or not. She was like the viejita mitotera that never left her house and knew everything that was going on within 10 square miles, you know? And, you have folks like that and that don't speak any Spanish too, you know? They're just like the old lady gossips who everybody like loves to listen to and then you talk about.
Barclay, you said you
Yeah, what Silviana could also do though very well is she could do Garcia Lorca with Andalusian Spanish. And I know that was written by somebody else, but she got everything right. She never got any criticism on that. I defend myself in Spanish, but a lot of teachers would go see her perform Lorca and they all really liked her work. And she also played in a Russian play that I directed in English, The Lower Depths. And so she can handle either language really, really well as an actor. It was, you know, we don't talk a lot about all the other plays she did because they weren't part of the popular culture in the barrio. And they were done more on stages like at a college or university. But she really, really could handle both languages. And I just wanted to throw that in.
Yes, thank you, Barclay. And I think that's, that's why we're here tonight honoring her. She spans across the entire community. She speaks to both worlds and is an incredible artist that's inspiring to all of us to kind of like, you know, intersect those areas of art. We're getting close to the end of the show, and I'm ready to go ahead and just introduce our next video clip, which is Betty Villegas presenting Silviana. Well, let's go ahead and just play the clip and we'll see what happens. This happened earlier today.
Whereas over the course of her long and productive career, Silviana has worked diligently and consistently with her community to produce insightful and relevant theater. And whereas, as a playwright, she gave a voice to women, especially Mexican-American women from the borderlands. And whereas the University of Arizona Press published Barrio Dreams, Silviana's anthology of plays in 2016, and it is the first and to date only published collection of plays by a Chicana playwright from Arizona. And whereas writing in the 1980s and 1990s, she was part of a first wave of professional Chicana playwrights and was awarded fellowships and residencies from the Arizona Commission on the Arts and the Ford and Rockefeller Foundations. And whereas Silviana twice won the Chicano Latino Literary Prize from the University of California, Irvine, and in 1993 was recognized with the Artist Award from the Community Foundation of Southern Arizona. And whereas because her plays address such issues as social justice, linguistic marginalization, oppressions, gender and sexuality, and class, they remain relevant decades after they were written. And whereas her creation, Doña Chona, an iconic busybody and cultural activist who tells it like it is, and by doing so challenges and teaches at once, was a fixture on public television in Tucson for more than 15 years. And whereas Silviana is a Tucson native, raised in Barrio Anita, who attended local schools, eventually earning a Master's of Fine Arts degree in creative writing from the University of Arizona. And whereas, in addition to being a playwright, Silviana has been an activist, a single mother, a social worker, a college instructor, a performer, and a director. Now therefore be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims Tuesday, October 20th, 2020 to be Silviana Wood Recognition Day. Passed and adopted this 20th day of October, 2020. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Silviana Wood Day.
Wow.
I'm wondering if we have Silviana. I wonder if she's gonna do an acceptance of her award. I think we do have Silviana. Hello.
Woo!
Yay, Silvia.
Hey, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Silviana Wood's Day.
My turn.
Yes.
I feel like that story with Huckleberry Finn where he's seeing the funerals.
Ay, ay, ay.
I'm at a loss for words, believe it or not. I'm gonna say some quickies, okay? And I know I'm gonna leave out, so I'm not gonna. I want to thank Mark and Borderlands. Thank you for all this work. I want to thank all the participants that have worked so hard. And sometimes I'm seeing this and I go, "Wow, is that me?" I'll just give a little quickie, okay? And I'm gonna start with Lupe. Lupe, my dear, you know a lot of secrets. You know what I owe to you, okay? But I'll just share one. I was thinking sociology that you, oh, there's another thing. I hold the record. I thought I held the record for 25 years to get my MFA. But somebody beat me the other day. They said, no, I went 26. Walking, I was thinking, sociology, this and that and that. And I was walking across. And Lupe says, how are you? And I said, I'm not feeling so good. Minority this, minority that, food stamps this. And she says, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to write. And you know what she said? Lupe said, you know what? We have too many social workers and not enough writers. Next day, they changed majors. And Barclay, my director there, one of the first place I was with you was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and we were having a dress rehearsal, and he tells me, Sylvia, could you get a little uglier? And I said, well, I'll try. Okay, I'll try. And I went to the makeup guy, and then I sat down, and the guy says, oh, goody, I get to work with some real wrinkles. Ramona, I always went to the library. And you asked me what's my favorite place. It's a library. My favorite people are librarians. And she would tell me, read this, and so thank you, Ramona. And one day I told her, you know what? I really would like to work in a library so I could read a lot of books. And she says, no, you don't have time to read books when you work in the library. So I thought about it and I said, well, maybe I should go to jail or prison. I could read all day. No, they don't have any books. So I said, okay. And, Teresa, we had a lot of fun because she would just make me work. But the favorite one was when Doña Chona calls Ronald Reagan, and she says, "What? You don't have a receptionist that can speak Spanish? Como que no?" But anyway, at the end of complaining, she finally says, "And stop sending us so much cheese. We're all getting tapados." And I was at an event about 2 years ago, and this lady comes up and she says, "I'll never forget what you told." And Valerina, we're still meeting after all these years. She says our group lasted longer than anybody's marriage. We started out with cafecito and pan dulce. Well, now we have 6-course meals. And all of us are working hard. And Valerina, she helps me anytime I need a word. And so it's a lot of fun. We've lasted forever. I mean, Arturo, where are you? Oh, ya estás. We just finished a while back. We went all over. Where were we? Guanajuato. We went
Guanajuato, San Miguel de Allende.
San Miguel de Allende. We did all of those things and had a lot of fun. I was tracing down Father Hidalgo, and I took a bus and got lost because I didn't understand what they were telling me. And I said, oh. When I came back, I did find Ototonilco. That was a town, and it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. We were checking out all the revolution, independence, all these things. So thank you, Arturo. And I have it written on that. And then let me see. Who am I missing? I think I got everybody here. I just wrote down the names.
Is it Barclay, Silviana?
Ande?
Barclay.
No, yeah.
Am I what?
She talked about him.
She already talked about Barclay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's everybody, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Silviana. Thank you for
all of you. I'm hoping that after the pandemic and all of this is over, that we'll all gather and have a real crazy pachanga with
Yes.
a lot of reminiscing. And I know tonight I'm just gonna be thinking of everything that you've said and what we've done. And I remember one in Teatro Libertad, Barclay, I was the calavera, the skeleton, and we went to Atenas Festival, and I'm the skeleton there, and Jorge Huerta and all of them were critiquing the thing. And then one of them says, "You're the first skeleton that's skinny." We had a lot of adventures. Lupe and I ended up at the pyramids. ¿Te acuerdas, Lupe?
Oh, sí. There was Tenaz was held out there in Teatro Campesino. It was the year that the mestizo was born. Remember, every theater was doing the birth of the mestizo.
Oh, and they were having babies, on the stage, like the birth.
Yeah,
of the
right.
What did I tell you at the end? Ya me cansé de tanta paridera de Chicanos. And then we were on the train, and it kept dying on us, and everybody was mad. And then we went down the street, and I was starving. And they're selling these taquitos. I told Mark, and then I'm eating away. And then Lupe says, "Oh, do you like it?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm starving." And I said, "What am I eating?" And she says, "Sesos." Sesos. I said, "What's sesos?" "Brains." Okay. And that was an adventure, wasn't it, Lupe?
Yeah, it was an adventure, and part of the experience we had, you put in Recuerdos de Oaxaca.
Oh, I remember when the train would stop and then nobody could move, and then there was bad words that I can't repeat. So that was that was something else. Oh, because Teatro Campesino came marching in to the pyramids, and it had the United Farm Workers flags, and it was very good. And Barclay, before I forget, I want to tell everybody, Barclay was the motor. He made us move. He did everything, and not only that, but he would bring in very, very gifted workshop leaders from the San Francisco Mime Troupe, from everybody, from Tenaz, everybody. So thank you, Barclay, for that. As far as how the groups worked, it was very dedicated. I know it was very dedicated, a lot of work. And Arturo, I have to tell them the line you gave that I almost broke character. Arturo, are you listening?
Yes.
Slap him. I was in Los Pelados, and I'm criticizing. I'm the mother-in-law, and I'm criticizing the coffee. I'm always saying that the coffee was in this, the coffee was in that. And then one of the lines I had, because I learned this in Mexico, when you make the coffee cowboy style, you have that what they call talega, but not the bad one. It's just talega. It just means a pouch. and I'm drinking and ad-libbing, and then I like the cup of coffee, and I say, este café sí está bueno, fue colado en un calcetín. And then he says, sí, es un calcetín que me hallé atrás en el trash de Santa María Hospital. And another line we had with Pancho, who's not here, but and Scott, we were improvising, and so he's there, like he's talking to us, and he says, and he's supposed to be like religious, and he says, today we're going to talk about sin, and he writes S-I-N, and then Pancho yells out, "Ajá, sin papeles." So that's how our lives grew, and I just want to thank you, and we got to have a pachanga someday.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You'll all go.
I remember the skit, Sylvia, Los Cabrones, remember? And we had a restaurant, and we served tacos al cabron.
And the couple goes into the restaurant, and they want margaritas, and Teresa comes out because quiero margarita, yo soy margarita, she says. and then the couple gets the big tortilla and puts it up as a napkin like this. And that made Teresa come out of the kitchen like that. And it was funny. It was real funny. And improvised.
Yeah.
A lot of those things, just like Lupe says, we knew the situation, and we made it funny, and we could connect. I was telling Mark at Ori Park, we did the Shrunken Head of Pancho Villa, and we were projecting, and sure enough, this elderly man, they called him Tocho, and he would yell out, "No se oye! No se oye!" And then Arturo had a scene where he's at the bar, and he's saying, "Ay," he's complaining and saying all this, and yo no sé, I don't know why I do these things, and somebody in the audience yells out, "Por pendejo." So we had a lot of fun, and some of the things that I've always said, and I'll go back to a little bit on the communicating in language. When you love language, you love people, they're there. And I love to check out words, but the other day I wanted to do some digging, and then I came up with communicate and communication. And very simply, it means to share. Okay, so that's what the teatros do. That's what we do in conversations. And my grandma used to say, she had a lot of proverbs, but she used to say, cada cabeza es un mundo. So that means everybody's got the stories there, and we just got to get them out. And, and somebody would say, está loca. And my grandma would say, si todos los locos usaran corona, todos fuéramos reyes. We're all a little cuckoo, right, Valen? So, and I think right now I'm working. I'm almost one. I cleaned it up. It was going to be 40 Shades of Chicano gray. Yeah. And now I'm still working on another play, and it's almost like a triangle, but it's almost like that last tango in Halifax, but it's gonna be the last tango in Barranita. When they say, I'll have to say this to all of you. I do not know the difference between virtual and digital, and I don't want to learn. And Valerina tries to help me, and she tells me, click, click, click. And that's all I know. Click.
Well,
The whole language. Oh, have you gone online? No, where is it? Are you swimming? No, there's the water over there. No, I don't know any of that. So, and it's just something I'm going to learn, baby.
well, you made it here tonight, Silviana. We're so happy that you decided to be a part of this with all of us. We're happy.
Did you drive, Silviana? Did you drive yourself?
Okay, well,
That's me.
Thank you. Yeah,
Did you drive yourself? I was telling him the other day about what a terrible driver you were. Not even, well, I don't know about the driving, just about the parking. Because you would come to the library and park on the sidewalk. Remember?
when you were at the El Pueblo one, and
at San Lina.
Well, no, but one time the students were there at El Pueblo, and I got out of the car and we hugged, and then one little kid tells you, "How come you two are always hugging?" That was before the virus.
Right.
Anyway, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're everybody.
Now I don't know how to follow all of this.
Yeah, well, I think that's the end of our show. I have a few thank yous to just to everybody who's shown up today, who's put all the work in to Regina Romero and to Betty Villegas, to Silviana for letting us bring you into this whole thing, and all of our participants that have helped share her story tonight. We also have just some special thanks to we have some special thanks to Arizona Public Media for archival video footage of Doña Chona. We have to especially thank Bob Diaz with special collections at the University of Arizona for the archival photographs that we used in today's program. And the program this evening was made possible by Arizona Humanities. We also want to just let you know that Borderlands is a nonprofit organization. If you can donate, it would be amazing. We have a Venmo account, which is at borderlandstheater.com. No, just at Borderlands Theater, sorry, where you can make a donation of anything that can help us out to continue programming like this, bringing artists together and the community together. So I think that is our show for tonight. Thank everybody so much for tuning in and being here.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Veronica.
It's so good to see everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Hi, Teresa.
Bye.
Bye. Great to see everybody.
Yeah.
Good night. Thank you.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Muy buenas.
Silvia.